Freight Car Safety Part 8 General Module 5. Freight Car Safety Standards Part 215 Subpart 8 General Module 5. Module Objectives. List conditions associated with the movement of the fact of the car. For explain with the role of designated inspector. List minimum inspection items during and Appendix D inspection. Subpart A. 215.1 Scope 3 Application 5 Definition 7 Prohibited Acts 9 Movement of affected cars for repair 11 Designated inspectors 13 Pre-departure inspection 15 Periodic inspection. Alright. Applicability. Part 215 apply with each railroad freight car and service on standard gauge track of the railroad, any other standard gauge track while the car is being operated by or otherwise under the control of the railroad. In service. In service. When you have the connection with the railroad freight car, maneuver each of the railroad freight car subject to the part unless the car tagged in accordance with the 215.9 is on a repair shop or repair track and is on a storage track or is empty, have been delivered or interchanged but has not been accepted with the receiving carrier. Exemptions. In Part 215 does not apply with the railroad freight car that is operated solely on the track inside of industrial other non-railroad installation used exclusively with a dedicated service defined in 215.5D. Maintenance of the way including self-propelled maintenance of the way equipment if the equipment is not used the revenue service in stencil and is stenciled in accordance with the 215.305, operated in a passenger train that is inspected, tested, and maintained, operated pursuant to the requirements contained in Part 238. No, 215.303 does not apply with the freight cars owned by or containing Mexican, Canadian reporting marks. Industrial or non-railroad. Steel mills, plant railroads, nuclear facilities. Dedicated. Services. Extensively between designated points used primarily inside of the industrial non-railroad installation, used occasionally over the general railroad system for no more than 30 miles or one direction and 60 miles round trip. Speed may not exceed 15 miles per hour. Cars not freely interchanged. Properly stenciled. Inspection found to safely operate. Maintenance of equipment. Freight equipment used the upkeep of everything in the railroad properly stenciled. Prohibited acts. Language reserving the FRA rights to accept the civil penalty on anyone who's a part of the violating any of the provision Part 215. For example, the manager, supervisor, official of the other employee or grantee of the railroad, any owner, manufacturer, lessor, leaser, or lesser, railroad, equipment of the track of the facility, the independent contractor providing goods or services to the railroad, any of the employees, such as the owner, manufacturer, leaser, or lesser, or independent contractor. Movement. Freight car effective under CFR Part 215, move within another location for the repair after meeting with the conditions stipulated with the Part 215.9 without liability with civil penalty. Only designated inspectors are authorized to make determination of the movement under the provision. Movement okay, provided all conditions are complied with. FRA state movement, power, and equipment. The journeyman inspector could attach the condition for the movement of the Form 8 special notice for repair. Conditions of movement and effective of repairs. Movement under the provision only authorized with effective repairs if the car is loaded with the unloaded with the first and left with the unloaded consistent with restriction imposed by the designated inspector. The car is consigned with a designation on line of haul from where it's found with the defective and the point where the repairs are to be made. If the car is empty, it can be loaded and it can't be loaded. Conditions for movement. It must be designated inspector car and determine if the car is safe to move and indicate speed or other handling restriction for safely conducting movement. Conditions of movement of tagging. Bad or a home shop for repairs affixed to both sides of the car. Conditions for movement that required information. Initials, car number, the inspection railroad, location of the date of the inspection, description of each of the defect, movement of the restriction, designation of for repair, signature of the designated inspector, notify of the crew member in charge of the training of the movement in writing. Conditions of the movement of the recorded retention. Record a copy of the tag card must be retained for 90 days after the removal from the car. Upon request and within 15 days shall be made available to review of the FRA and state inspectors. Tagging cars removed must contain the date, location, reason for removal, signature of the person who removed it from car. Special notice for repair. Use only if you have the reason to believe the railroad will not take an appropriate step for the ensure safe movement of the car. Use only with the defect of the amendment that has the potential case of the derailment, injury, doubt of the damage to property. Contact your specialist when in doubt. A special notice of the repair could be used to tap for the condition of the movement if you're not satisfied with the railroad imposed restriction in connection with the 215.9 movement. Movement for repair. Discussion of movement of the repair maintenance. 19. What is designated inspector? Person of the railroad designated with the inspection freight car complying with the Part 215 railroad must maintain with a written record with each of the designation in effect with the base for each its own designation. Only designated inspectors are authorized to make determination previously discussed for the movement of 215-9. Pre-departure inspection. Inspection required at each location wherever the car is added to the train. The inspection may be made before or after the car is placed in the train. Inspection may be made to determine the total compliance with this part or lesser restrictive method. Appendix D. The railroad is not relatively relieved of liability for compliance with this part. In either case, inspection must be made on both sides in order to be considered proper inspection. Technical bulletin, motor power and equipment, 9857. Pre-departure inspection. Inspection may not be performed while the equipment is moving. The inspection may not be performed for moving locomotives on adjacent tracks. Technical bulletin, motor power and equipment, 9858. Failure to perform properly. Perform pre-departure inspections considered separate and distinct from any additional mechanical defects of the car. Appendix D. Car body leaning and listening to the side, sliding downward position improperly on the track. Object dragging below. Door insecurely attached. Broken, missing safety appliances. Appendix D. Inspection continued. Insecure coupling, overheated wheel or journal. Broken, extensively cracked wheel brake on the fails release. Any other safety hazard likely to cause the accident casualty before the train arrived at the destination. This is the end of Module 5.